Welcome to this week's episode of Noteschool TV. My name is Joe Varnadore, and we go live every Wednesday at 11:05 a.m. Central Time. So we deliver quality content about the note business every Wednesday live. So make sure and like, share, and subscribe, and click on that bell notification so that you will know exactly when we are live. You'll get that notification. Also, we have an interactive show here, so share your questions and comments. And if you're brand new to Noteschool, you can check us out at noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. So, today it is Mr. Eddie Speed and I. Eddie is the founder of Noteschool, and we talked a bit last week, Eddie, about buying properties on terms, right? And what that looks like. And so this week we're going to get into selling properties on terms, and then next week we've got a special guest that's going to come on and share with us a property that he did and actually won our case study contest at Note Expo, Note Appreciation event last week. So we're excited about that as well.
He did, and we're excited to have him on next week. So last week we talked about buying properties on terms and why that was important. We talked about that real estate investors, if they're only making a cash offer trying to buy a house at a discount, they sort of have a one strategy business.
Right.
And we talked about moving a strategy over and adding, saying, Mr. Seller, I can pay you more for your property, but I'm going to have to dictate the terms. And obviously the way you say it and how you approach it has a lot to do with your success in doing that. So, Joe, the reason that works is because I can pay any price for a piece of property if I get the right terms, right?
That is correct.
It's a good looking shirt you're wearing, man.
Well, thank you. A little busy, right? I like that. That's a really bright blue. I love that, man. I'm going to go out and get me one of those. So that's a good looking shirt, Joe. I would buy that shirt from you for $500. Eddie, I'll go ahead and I'll ship that to you overnight.
Do that, and I'll pay you $1 a year for the next 50 years.
Wait a minute. You told me you'd pay me $500.
Well, I'll pay you $1 a year for the next 500 years.
Okay. All right. That's the analogy, folks.
So understand that, we can pay anything. And so, Joe, wouldn't it be cool? Think about this. What if I bought a piece of property and I agreed to pay them over a long period of time, and before I ever owed them any money, I'd already collected the money on the property with good profit before I ever had to pay anything out?
So you can really do that, huh, Eddie?
That's the American dream, Joe.
You're absolutely right. So I could make some money now, right? And I could make money over time.
Yeah. So here's what we've learned. We've taught hundreds and hundreds of real estate investors this strategy over the last couple of years. Thousands, Joe. Thousands, right? To some degree or another. So, but we've taken well over 1,000 people into some fairly in-depth training on this, because they said, I'm a real estate investor, and what do I do when they won't take my cash offer? Essentially, I throw it in the trash can.
Right.
And that's not a good plan, right? So from that, we've learned that there is another way to do it, and that is to buy on terms. But if I buy it on terms, Joe, what do I do with the property? Well, Joe, I could rent it.
Yes,
I could rent it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that for the most part in the next 5 years is going to be the perfect rental property cycle. Okay.
I agree. Yep.
I think that we've hit a top of the market. And I believe if you, instead of renting it, what if you could sell it, Joe, and essentially get a down payment from a buyer? They paid about 20% down.
Right.
Now, somebody on this show, Joe, is going, oh, that's BS, Eddie. You can't actually do that. What if I said the average conventional mortgage last month made an average down payment to get a conventional mortgage of 19% down?
So, Eddie, that's about $38,000 to $40,000 on a $200,000 house. But that's the reality from the research, right? We know this.
Here's another thing. Who in the world could I seller finance? Who needs seller financing? Why do they like? Why don't they just go get a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan?
Right.
Well, here's the facts. The facts are that conventional mortgage lending, the people that could get a mortgage in February before the virus outbreak, and the people that can get a mortgage in October or November, right where we are right now, just about 35% less.
Right.
So it's left this pool of people outside of who can get conventional financing. And Joe, we tend to call these people just missed.
Right.
Right. So here's where we are as a market condition. Conventional lending, while it is very active, has drastically tightened their underwriting. So they're refinancing perfect people. Let's just be fair about it. That's kind of where we're at.
That's right.
And so what they're not doing is they're not financing the people that could get a mortgage last year. And we see that as a terrific opportunity. Joe, I have a chance because of the way that I bought a piece of property and I control that property long term. And I don't have to pay for it today. I pay for it over time. I have the legal right to resell it, wrap it, and as long as I make my underlying mortgage payment when I'm supposed to, and I will,
right,
then I can go resell it and get a good down payment, and then I can charge a higher rate than I'm having to pay. Isn't that what your bank does, Joe? Does your bank, they pay me 2% interest and charge you 5%.
Right. More like, Eddie, they pay you a half maybe and charge you 5%.
Well, okay. I was being liberal with the number.
Right. And they're happening, and that happens multiple times every day, and people are happy with that. So, Eddie, what you're saying is we can go in and we can buy a property like we talked about last week, and we can pay, we could buy it for $160,000 cash, or we could pay $195,000 on terms and tie that up and then have that property. And then we go out, and typically when we sell, we're getting, if we did make a down payment with our seller, the person we bought it from, most of the time we can get at least twice as much as we've paid down to our seller. And then we're going to get a cash flow every month from that deal.
You make money today and money over a long period of time.
Right.
Which is what we believe real estate investing should be. Flipping houses is fine. We're not trying to tell people don't flip houses. We're telling you, if all you do is flip contracts and you don't keep any long-term wealth, you kind of are missing the real meaningfulness of real estate investing, right? And once again, people say, well, I like to buy rentals. But we believe that we've entered into a seller finance cycle because of all of these market conditions. We believe we've entered into a seller finance cycle that we can make a lot more money over a period of time as the bank, more money today, more money tomorrow than we can just keeping it as a rental. And Joe, I can do 10 times the amount of assets.
Right.
Joe, if my shop services 1,200 notes,
right,
we service between 700 and 2,000 notes, depending on where we're at and,
right,
and how much inventory we've got. But I can service 1,200 notes easily in my shop with my staff. Could I service 1,200 rental properties?
Oof, that'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
I'd need 10 times the staff, wouldn't it?
Right.
So understand, with a skeleton staff, I can scale the business, and we're teaching you to qualify people to do these notes in such a way. I'm telling you, they are really good people. They have good, we're not, sometimes people think seller financing means substandard real estate and substandard buyers. That is not what we teach. We teach you structuring techniques, how to structure the underlying financing in such a powerful way that you can resell it, and you're giving this buyer a great deal. You're giving him home ownership, Joe.
Right.
I mean, what could be better than that?
Well, you're exactly right. And so, Eddie, instead of just, if we flip the contract, we've made $20,000 once, but what we see our students doing over and over and over again is making $20,000, $15,000 to $25,000 today, and then somewhere between $350 and $550 a month for the next 30 years, right? And that's really, and you're the bank, right? You're the bank.
Well, let me ask the audience a question. If all things were equal, would you rather be a landlord or the bank?
Right.
If all things were equal, the answer is, Eddie, I'll take the landlord every time. So we've entered into a market cycle. Now, I've been doing this forever. Joe, you've been doing it for 30 years. That's almost forever.
Right.
I've been doing it 40 years.
Yep.
Right. And if you really think about this business and all the times that we've seen, there are chapters in our industry, right? They're seasons. There's harvest seasons, and there's seasons that aren't as harvest. And we've done well in the business in the last few years because we've really perfected some strategies, right? We've really perfected it. But the stars have aligned, Joe.
Right.
The stars have aligned where people selling a property will carry the financing for you because they get their price, right? Now, we fully understand if said incorrectly, you're going to get the wrong answer, right? If you say it, if you position it wrong with the seller, they're not going to sell to you. But if you position it correctly, we are highly convinced, because of hundreds of case studies that we have and see on a weekly basis, we're highly convinced that if said correctly, you can get somebody to do it. Now here's the cool thing, Joe. There is a lot of real estate investors that kind of have a property acquisition machine built, right? And they don't have anybody on their team that can do this.
Correct.
Right? Well, we figured that out, and then we started training students to go help the real estate investor to go be his outsourced acquisition specialist. We call them a designated hitter, right? Now, once you do that and you have that in place, then the other side is you need to resell the house. Now, Joe, the problem is, oh my God, I got to resell the house.
Right.
So the answer is yard sign and Facebook Marketplace, 99% of the time is going to get you where you want to get.
Absolutely.
A yard sign and Facebook Marketplace is going to get you where we want to get. And we have lots of students, and I own businesses, or I'm a partner in businesses that are very active in real estate investing, buying and reselling, where we do this. So it's not like this is a mystery to us. We live and deal in this every day in the business. And what we used to hear, Joe, about a year ago is, I'm in Phoenix and I can't find anybody with that kind of down payment. Or I'm in South Carolina and I can't find anybody with that kind of down payment. Or I'm struggling with, who is this penalty box buyer you're describing? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
At the moment, Joe, we're not hearing any of that objection.
No.
Like, we're finding people consistently getting 15 to 20% down. They're finding buyers that have been left behind by conventional mortgage lending that are really good people. I mean, they're not anywhere near bad. And so this is that season. We've entered that season. And, for some people listening on here, they may say, well, Eddie, I love the idea of creating my paper on real estate. I just don't want to, I hear about these real estate investors, but it sounds like a lot of brain damage. Right. And the answer is, you are correct. It is a lot of brain damage to run a high volume real estate investing business. So go over there and take their lead and go do something with it.
Right.
Right. But the deal is the exit and reselling today, Joe, is so strong. That exit today is the best I've seen, I believe,
right,
in probably 10 years.
I totally agree. And Eddie, well, I was talking to Scott, one of our students in the Phoenix area. You mentioned Phoenix, and he just closed on a deal in October where he had bought it, and then he sold it, resold it using creative seller financing. And Eddie, he said that when he posted it to Facebook Facebook Marketplace, he had 5 responses to his ad within an hour and sold it the next day. Right. So, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's just it's using, practical private loan available to qualified buyer with a large down payment versus the old try and true. Hey, we'll sell it to anybody, no cash, no problem, right? No credit, no problem. That's not our avatar on this deal.
Yeah. So what Joe's saying here is the way we position offering seller financing is different than you probably have heard of in the past.
Right.
Now, let me give you a little history. Okay. I bought a few portfolios of seller finance notes in the 1980s. A few is in, I don't know, a dozen or 3 dozen. I don't remember the number. It's been a long time ago. But in the 1990s, I specialized in working with real estate investors and buying portfolios of seller finance notes. And what it morphed into is the early days of Noteschool. I set up the note system for home investors and a lot of other real estate investor companies with a recipe and a formula of how to create seller financing. Okay. Well, in that process, I figured out I had to help them with how to market for the best buyer out there looking for a piece of property. Because the habit that I have noticed over and over and over is when people would market for seller financing, they would sort of hang out a neon sign saying, I'm looking for substandard.
Right.
We've all seen, Joe, we've all seen those ads, right?
Yes, we have.
We've seen the ads that say bad credit, no problem, what you just said.
Right.
Right. Or even, let me just say this, Joe, if you put just seller financing in an ad, the guy that sees the ad, he looks at it and goes, well, what does he see? He says, I see non-qualifying.
Right.
Right. And so we found out if I could make a different demographic call your marketing because you positioned it in such a way. And isn't that what marketing is, Joe? Is just messaging in a way that attracts you to your real customer that you want.
That's right.
And so if we could do that, we could change the efficiency. So we moved away from even putting seller financing in the ad. We put in the ad private financing for deserving buyers with large down payment, right? Now, why we said private financing, Joe, is it is private financing. It's our private financing. In fact, this industry has been called the private money mortgage business, right? Because it's private loans, not institutional loans. But the answer is, Joe, it suggests that we have a different way of lending you money than Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. We're more flexible than them, but it does suggest that there is a qualification process, right? And I want somebody to read that ad and go, you know what? I'm a deserving buyer. I'm reading this ad. I'm a deserving buyer. Joe, I need to call you. I need to contact you on Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to pop you a message because I'll guarantee you I'm a good credit risk. I just happen to be self-employed.
That's right. 1 in 5 people in the U.S. are. And, Eddie, the the other part of that, and you mentioned it, we are going to make sure they are a qualified buyer. We're going to make sure the loan is Safe Act compliant, right? We're going to use an RMLO in order to make sure that we are, making sure that buyer can repay our bank for the next 30 years.
Let me say this about qualifying a buyer. Some people have heard of seller financing, and I've heard this said to me countless times. And when they're playing it back to me when they seller financed, their seller financing strategy, Joe, was more a strategy to get rid of their property. It was not a strategy to gain a customer for their bank for the next 20 years.
Correct.
Now listen, we have lots of techniques showing you, once you have good notes, of how you could create some liquidity with it, right? You need to go get some of your capital back, or you need to go gather up some of the notes with a cash flow so that you can then go take a bigger lump sum of money and propel yourself. All of those things that we completely understand, right? It starts out with a good note that you are highly, highly likely to get paid back. And then you have a ton of latitude of what you can do with it.
That's right.
Joe, let me ask you a question. What would it be like if you woke up on January 1st every year and you knew you had enough note payments coming in?
That's right.
That your overhead was covered for the entire year on the first day of the year. Imagine
how, by having that, Eddie, because you've been talking about, doubling your net worth over this pandemic. Imagine having that coming in and how creative you can be, because you have your bills covered for the year, right?
Yeah, there is no doubt that this is the strategy that I want people to build. Now, people say, but Eddie, I need transactional money. We're not ignoring that. That's what these down payments are for. Well, when I buy a property, how do we structure the down payment? We can show you a lot of strategies of how to structure the down payment, but it's not really a down payment. It's really that you're using some private capital to fund the money to the seller. So it gives him money at closing. It's just not your cash.
That's right.
Right. There's, and people say, well, man, all that stuff sounds complicated and stuff. That's why we teach with case studies.
That's right.
I mean, case studies are the easiest way. Joe, right now, if somebody comes to a 3-day class, we are going to, by the third day, we're going to take about 8 different strategies and pull them all together and use literally 8 different strategies on one case study.
That's right.
Right? And people say you can't do that. Oh, no, we do it we do it all the time. In other words, it just shows us when we work hard at it. You and I are on the phone an hour today on a teaching strategy that we're going to implement here in the next week or so, right?
Right.
We do this on a daily basis. So we've learned how far we can take somebody if the way we teach becomes so clear.
That's right.
By the way, Joe and I, we do these deal labs every week. Yeah. We had a deal lab yesterday. One of them was exactly the story that we just told you, literally exactly the story, which is the student did exactly what we said and went to Facebook Marketplace. Now he's going to sell to a landlord 50% down.
Correct.
50% down, right? And so then he's going to end up with a note, and we talked about how he could exit with a note and different things he can do. I mean, he's got a loan that's very saleable, or he can borrow money against it because he's got a loan. The guy, qualified buyer, paid 50% down. And the next case study that came on right after that one with another student is she's going out and finding free and clear landlord property, right? Nice houses. These aren't junk.
Right.
They've owned them. The truth of the matter is, whether the landlord admits it or not, they're burnt out. They want the entire price for their property. They want Zillow price, right? And Joe laughed, and I said, well, tell them to call Zillow. Zillow's got the plan. Tell him to call me. Well, no, I don't think Zillow will do that.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea is, this is exactly where we want to show people there's opportunities. Listen, there's nothing wrong with a wholesaling business. There's nothing wrong with a rental property business. We're just saying that there's market conditions, Joe, that are ripe for what we're doing. And the thing that I love about it is, Joe, I make this statement to a new student, and I make it because it's the statement that my father-in-law taught me 40 years ago that started me in the business. He said, this business will be good to you a long time in the future.
That's right.
Right. And that's because you're getting these checks. You're getting monthly payments. All right, Joe, bookend us here, my man.
All right. So, guys, we have learned today that, yes, we can buy a property with terms, right? Buying on terms. We talked about that last week. And then we can resell that property on terms as well using a wrap agreement. And by the way, we have all of the paperwork that goes along with that. And you can not only make money today, but you can make money and income stream forever for the next 30 years. And that's what we want to see for your business, right? We want to see you become the bank. And there is something that is freeing about that. It is true passive income. So as I said, next week, live, we will have one of our students that won a case study contest with a deal that he did in California here just a few months ago. So stay tuned for that next week. So remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We go live here on Noteschool TV every Wednesday at 11:05 a.m. Central Time. To learn more about Noteschool, go to noteschool.com/TV. And guys, we will see you next week. We're going to have a great episode as always, and we've got a special guest. So we will see you next Wednesday, 11 Eastern, but 11 Central. Bye now.